This is Whole Life, a podcast from the Whole Life Church in Orlando, Florida.
Join me, Ken Wetmore, lead pastor, and Melanie Bachman, our worship pastor, along with our communication team, Randy and Lucas. Take a look back, a look deeper, and a peek into the week ahead.
Here we explore meaningful conversations about spirituality, community, and living with purpose.
We don't have all the answers, but we are walking the journey together.
Wherever you're listening from, you're wanted here.
This is Whole Life.
Hey everyone, it's episode 507 of This is Whole Life, where every single week we have the pleasure of getting access to your earbuds and letting you in on what's happening here at Whole Life. We dig deeper into the message each week, and hopefully through that process we learn to love God in a more meaningful way together. And this year at Whole Life, it's all about greater things and the greater things yet to come. And so obviously, we would love to hear from you. We're going to hear from a few of you in just a moment. 407-965-1607, voicemail or text, or podcast at wholelife.church. Let your voice be heard. It's always more fun when you show up. All right. And this week, Melanie is on the sick list. She recused herself from being a spreader and decided to stay home. Thank you, Melanie, although we miss you here. Ken is in.
I have an issue with that, Randy. I have no problem with her being in the studio today. None. I think she should have come in.
She should have come in. Well, and I'll tell you why Ken feels that way, because Ken is joining us, as you can probably tell by the tone of his voice. He's joining us remotely by phone from Washington, D.C., and a pretty cool place. Tell us about it really quick, Ken.
Yeah, I'm at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. I'm here for the Global Leadership Summit's base camp for lead pastors of churches that host the Global Leadership Summit, which we do. Usually it's always the first Thursday and Friday in August, and
Yep.
It's coming back around this year. Make sure you sign up. It's going to be amazing again this next year. But one of the fun things is they put on a 2-day event for pastors, a different place. Last year it was at Chicago. Last year was my first year to attend, and it was so good last year. I said, I've got to come back and do this again because it was just a lot of great leadership stuff. And this year, one of the locations, they have it in 2 different locations. Today's location is at the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C., which if you are in Washington, D.C., I highly recommend this. It is really an amazing museum. It's completely nonprofit, receives no federal or local funding. It's independent on its own. And I wasn't really sure what to expect when I came here. I wondered if it was going to be kind of cheesy or whatever, but it's actually very fascinating. There's 7 floors of exhibits and all kinds of really amazing things. One of the probably my favorite parts is right now they have a exhibit of fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls that are here. And it is a pretty incredible thing to be able to look at these fragments. One of the fragments that I got to look at was actually Genesis 1 in the beginning. And so that's very, very neat. And the cool thing is about this, they will only, if I'm understanding correctly, they'll only bring these fragments out for 3 months. And then they return them to complete darkness for a minimum of 5 years after that. Because obviously the light isn't good for them, so they have to keep them in the dark so they can last and that sort of thing. But just a really neat thing. There's they have a lot of replicas of different things, but they also have some of the actual just things like the Magda. Oh, I can't remember, but it's this really cool piece of furniture that would have been in the Magda synagogue probably around the time when Jesus was alive. And so there's a good chance that Jesus actually saw it, touched it, maybe even sat on it. It's very, very neat, very moving to be in this place. If you're in DC and you have the time, totally recommend it.
Add it to your list. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, well, this week, guys, we were talking about, this is episode 2, or I should say, this is installment 2 of our The Greatest of These series. And this week we were talking about phileo love. Last week it was eros. And so we did have a couple of emails that came in. So I want to get to those really quickly. We'll see if we're going to get to questions with Lucas because he is currently on his iPad. We have a server issue with the live website that actually handles our live stream and our chat every week. And so we don't have access to those right now. But if we don't before the show is over, we'll get to those next week. But let's get started with the emails. First of all, this is Randy Rowe in Australia. Hi, everyone. I surely do miss all of you, but I at least get to hear you once a week on the podcast. Well, hi, Randy. And it's so good to see that you're at least checking in with us each week. Yesterday, while listening to the podcast from February the 14th and hearing the new intro again, I thought to myself, I need to let the team know that I really can like or dislike.
Randy likes it. I read it. I read the email.
I like the updated intro with each of the four of you and the new upbeat theme music. Then the conversation began, and wouldn't you know, the new intro was a topic right out of the gate. My vote, I like the new intro. Thanks, Randy. I appreciate that. Randy's are just awesome. I don't know how else to say it. So I hope my message finds everyone well. Myra and I are always...
I want Randy. I want the other Randy to know they'd be awesome, even if they disagreed with you.
Well, that's true too. That is true. I would also concur. She goes on, Myra and I are always a bit behind on the sermons as it's impractical to listen live. I'm not sure what the time frame difference is there, but it's probably 10, 12 hours, I would imagine. But
no, it's probably about 18.
Is it 18, you think? Okay. But we get to it during the week, and then I listen to the podcast after that. Life in Australia is treating us well, but we do miss our friends and family from Central Florida. Warmest regards to all, Randy. So thank you for that. It's always good to hear from you. All right. So this is from, let's see the other email. They didn't really, I know who it's, well, their name was in the email, but they didn't really say that to use it, so I'm not going to. But it says, good morning. The Black History Sabbath message was absolutely inspirational. Thank you for introducing us to the speaker. And of course, she's talking about our special speaker for that week, Jessica Brazier. And even though this comes a couple of episodes late, thank you, Pastor Melanie, for your honesty and transparency. If you missed that episode, I would advise you to go back. It was very, very good. And this is where, guys, I love the fact that you write in because this is community. This is what we're talking about, the phileo love. Jay, I've been praying for you, and I want you to know you're not alone. I actually went through a season where I stopped praying altogether after a loss. I couldn't pray. I didn't see the point. And yes, I was mad, all caps. My conversations with God were basically... everyone prayed, and this still happened, so why am I praying? Around that same time, I was asked to lead a ministry at church. I served in that ministry on and off since I was a teenager, and my spiritual gifts lined up pretty well with it. But I immediately scheduled a meeting with the pastor to decline. I sat in his office and told him straight up, I stopped talking to God, and I don't think I can lead if I can't pray. He looked at me and simply asked, but can you serve? Whew. I went home in tears. After talking with my mama mentors, I decided to accept the position and just serve. I even remember saying to God, all right, I told A, I'd pray for her, but you're going to do whatever you want anyway. Just please be gentle with her and comfort her. Yes, I was that angry. I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way while serving, my heart softened. My prayers stopped sounding like arguments, and they slowly became conversations again. It took time, but God and I are on good terms now. I still don't always understand him, but I'm choosing to trust him. So Jay, please know that you're not alone. You may not feel him right now, but I promise you he is near. This is sincerely the president of the Pastor Melanie's fan club. So, Prez, I agree, and thank you. Jay, I'm glad that you now know that we have people praying for you, not just us here at the podcast, but this person as well, and I hope that that story was meaningful for you as well. Okay, so we had another one email here to the podcast team from someone. Says, I agree that we need dialogue. This was based off of this past week's message on phileo. It is concerning when the lead pastor makes a statement to the church of, I'm appalled by what I see happening in the United States. It breaks my heart, and I'm going to say it. I condemn the actions that I see my country taking when it comes to immigrants. It's not okay. The question is this the position of Whole Life Church? We can say we want dialogue. However, if Whole Life Church wants honest dialogue, it is incumbent upon the leadership to create a culture of listening. This type of clear position statement does not invite dialogue, even if you then say you love those who disagree with you. Signed, a concerned member. So,
Yeah.
what do you think, Ken?
No, I appreciate the email, and I was copied on that email, so I've actually already responded to them. So I really appreciate them reaching out. Appreciate them giving me the opportunity to address that question on the show. I would say that is that the official position of the Whole Life Church? Well, in the part that someone quoted, it was pretty clear that it said that this is my feeling. I didn't say that was that this was something that had been voted by our church board or something like that. On the other hand, I also recognize when the lead pastor of an organization says something, why that would lend you towards saying, but well, it's, you're the head pastor. So I understand that, but no, I would not say that. I would say, though, that the North American division has put out of Seventh-day Adventists has put out a statement on this topic. And what I said, I believe, is in alignment with what their position was. And I can also understand where it may feel like if I state my position, that feels like, well, we're not going to have a dialogue on it. I guess I come from a different place. Maybe it's because I worked in media. Maybe it's because of any number of different things. But I think that it's one of the things that bothers me the most is when I don't know where someone stands and I'm having a discussion with them. And I think sometimes it's a little disingenuous to pretend like you don't have a position, that you're neutral. Nobody's neutral.
No.
Nobody's neutral. And sometimes when you start a discussion, it's really important to know where your starting points are. If you know where my starting point is, and you know where your starting point is, it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to have a dialogue because I know where we're in agreement. I know where we're not.
Yeah.
I also think that I would hope that those who know me, and I've been here for 5 years now, know that I am in no way offended or vindictive towards people who have a different opinion than I do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I can understand why you might think, well, if the lead pastor thinks this and I say that I'm against this, maybe he won't be as nice to me, or maybe he will think less of me. Or again, I can only imagine the different thoughts you might have. I can tell you that's not the case. As is the story with my wife who disagreed with me, and that's one of the things that attracted me to her.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with people who disagree respectfully and with thoughtfulness. I also think that one of the things that I'd like to say, why I bring this particular topic up and why I went ahead and chose very deliberately to say what I said, was because this is a topic that has a really big impact on more people at Whole Life Church than you may think. It's an issue that I'm constantly having to have conversations with people about. I've had the people in my office who have come to this country and tried to do everything the right way. And now they're terrified because they're not sure whether, after doing everything they could the right way, whether or not they're going to be put on a plane back to, in some cases, a country that they're not very familiar with, or sent to a country that they weren't from in the first place. And so I think that it's important for me to speak into this and to kind of talk about some of the moral issues that I see going on in this. I've said it before on the show, I don't have a problem with the United States having an immigration law and enforcing those laws. But I really have a problem when we start demonizing immigrants, when we start talking about them as less than human, when we start putting on them things that I don't believe are true, that they are mainly lawbreakers. And, if that's the case, if you're going to put that, the vast majority of undocumented migrants in this country have committed no violent crime. Probably at least around 50% of them came here legally on a visa that may be expired or something like that. And I've, again, worked with people who have been on a visa, they're here, they've been trying to go through the proper channels to get that visa updated or to apply for a green card or to do things the right way. And the system completely gets in their way of being able to do it. And I guess the political tone that I hear in this country towards these kind of people, it feels like from what I hear, that there tends to be a lack of compassion for people who are trying to get away from sometimes some really horrible situations. I can't imagine what it would take for me to pack up everything I own and leave Orlando and move to a country where I didn't speak the language. I can't imagine how bad I would have to feel like things were for me to do that. And yet I do know people who have done that actually fairly recently and who have moved from Orlando to other places because they were scared. And scared for reasons I don't think are illegitimate. So again, that's why I think it's important to do it. I'm going to stand by it. I do think we need to have dialogue. I think we need to have conversation. Just like I said in my statement, we all, including me, have to hold on to the possibility that we're not right. Certainly we all can grow.
Yeah.
But my encouragement, like I said, I think it's just a very heartbreaking thing to see these stories and hear these. This isn't just me watching the news and buying everything that the news is pushing. Having come from a news background, I'm pretty familiar with how to parse the news. These are real stories. These are real people. These are things that I've seen with my own two eyes and heard with my own 2 ears. I'm bothered. I'm bothered when my country doesn't want to give due process to every person in this country. We can say it doesn't apply to people who are here illegally, but how do you know that they're not here illegally if you don't give them the process to prove it? And that becomes concerning to me. So that's a very important thing from my standpoint. Also, again, the way that we talk about people, the way that we treat them when we do deport them, whether we treat them as well as we would treat our own family if they had made a mistake, or we want our family to be treated. I think that's important. And so that's why I think it's an important conversation for us to be having. And I think it's important when we're talking about phileo love to have that conversation. But again, somebody, as I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to respond to it. And as I said in my email, I'm sure you are not alone in your feeling there. I know it can feel a little uncomfortable. And yet, if we don't have these kind of conversations, and if we don't lay our cards on the table, but we're kind of cagey with each other about where we actually stand, I'm not really sure that we're ever going to get anywhere in this conversation and others.
Yeah. And I think that's the other important part too, is the others, because there's plenty of those conversations. And I would just add that knowing Ken for the whole time he's been here, we've done the podcast since nearly the day he started, or probably nearly that day he started. And before I actually came on to staff here. And I know that, Ken and I, in differing parts of even this subject, we have differing degrees of what we believe and what we hold dear in this subject. And yet, Ken and I can have a conversation, we can disagree, and we can still love each other. We can still be friends. And this morning we had a staff member come over to the studio while we were getting prepared for the podcast and, talked about this very subject. It comes up a lot, of course, as it probably does in all of your conversations, maybe at work or at home. And, the nuances. And then we talked about the assumptions that are made, not only for the people that we're talking about, but even amongst ourselves. We don't give each other the benefit of the doubt that just because I disagree with Ken, then immediately Ken doesn't like me or is going to treat me different, or that somehow, if he has that idea, then this is how he feels on other subjects. And it's really easy to just pile on instead of just saying, Ken, it's kind of difficult. I know we disagree. And I'd like to challenge what you said on X, Y, or Z. Why do you feel that way? Can we talk? And then at the end, just be able to smile and look forward to the next time we have a conversation, whether it includes this or a different subject. So, know that we
appreciate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Randy, I was going to say, I appreciate you saying that because, yeah, and since you said it, you and I do have very different viewpoints, I think, on this particular topic. And I don't know if the word vary, but
Yeah,
I'd say
I would say differing enough.
say different enough.
Yeah.
And that's never changed the fact that I want to work with you, that I want you on our team, that you're a part of this church. And so I appreciate you saying that because I think it's important for people to understand that. I think we live in a world where sometimes when we disagree with people, it's weaponized. And we pay deep prices for having different opinions.
Yep.
And that's not the way I want it to be. I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's the way that God would have it. I don't think it's biblical. So anyway, so I appreciate you being willing to share that part of it so that we can kind of let people know that, whichever side of the equation. I hope that I hope people understood that I really meant it. I do understand that there are those who have a different opinion than me on this topic, that I may not completely understand, but I have a good idea of the lens that they're seeing through. And I think many that there's no maliciousness. There's not racism involved. It's just a belief about law and order and about fairness that comes into play.
Well, and I think the other thing that made me take a second, kind of look at this morning was when we were talking in the office this morning, and I don't have permission to say who was here, so I'm not going to say their name, but the idea that as nuanced as conversations like this get, because there's a ton of different scenarios that happen when you talk about immigration, just like when you talk about any other hot button topic, right? So just because Ken and I, when we say we have a differing enough viewpoint, it doesn't mean that I don't agree with Ken on a lot of it. Right? There's certain points that I don't, and there's certain points that he doesn't. But it also isn't it isn't two-sided. You know what I'm saying? It's not like because Ken feels this way about this piece of it and I feel this way, Ken's just a bad person, or Ken believes, if you believe this, you must believe. There's so many sides to this. It's almost like a circle. You can just put little pinpoints around the edges of it. And if we all plotted where we were, kind of like a disc survey where you kind of, how do you feel about this part? And I think if you had on any one of these subjects and someone had the time to break everything down about, I believe this about this part, this about this part. And I think it would look like you were throwing darts at a dartboard for 200 people for an hour, and it would just be riddled with holes everywhere because there's so many pieces and parts to it. And sometimes I feel like if we all could just take a step back and realize that it's just a differing viewpoint doesn't mean it's the whole opposite of everything in the world that I believe. So therefore we must, like Ken said, we have to be enemies now. We can't get along. We can't have any other conversations. We can't be friends. These are lines that can't be crossed. And I personally don't believe that. And I don't feel that way. Yeah. So I hope we all can agree at least on that part.
And what I really hope to do in this conversation, one of the things I've been really trying of late to do is to not be reactionary, not be speaking to every news story that happens, but to be speaking to larger principles in the sermon series that we have planned, which is what I was, this sermon series has been planned for a while. And when I was researching phileo, it felt like the right time to be inserting this. And why? Because I think that philoxenia is an important aspect of having a discussion about how we treat immigrants and what our policies are. And as Americans, how we're going to go about thinking about this. And again, I totally understand that we can look at the Bible and come to different conclusions. That's possible, for sure. It's been happening for a long time. But what I do hope is that by talking about phileo, I hope that as we start thinking about our positions on this topic, that we are at least doing it through the lens of phileo, love, agape. How do I look at this as a Christian? How do I do it? And I think it's very possible perhaps to look at it through that lens and come to differing places. But sure. I think it's a starting point. And I think that if you don't have a North Star at all, then you can wind up in some wildly divergent places. And so I hope that at least by having this idea that God commands us to love the stranger and to treat them with dignity and respect and to to give them the same equality that a native-born person would have, that would guide the discussion to a certain extent of. And again, the United States is a secular nation. I don't want a nation that doesn't separate church and state. At the same time, I also think you've got to be guided by something. And to me, one of the best places is the law of love. And we're talking about 4 different kinds of love over these 4 weeks. And in this particular one, I think it's a valid place to have a discussion of what that looks like in real life.
Well, and I hope that, as you know, we had the emails, and I'm sure that there are those out there listening that, you know, tune in every week that have very, you know, strong opinions on this. And I hope that just, you know, the amount of time today that we've taken just here trying to maybe open like, it's okay to have these conversations and have, like Ken said, have them respectfully. And then realize that, you know, there's how many people sitting in the worship center every week, you know, through 2 services, 800 people, 900 people, that there's going to be there'll be 800 different, you know, versions of what someone might believe. But that at the end of the day, we're all here. We're all here as family. We're worshiping together and trying to be as much like Jesus as possible in however we can and whatever we are on our journey. So, you know, I would rather us have the conversation and have there be discomfort, have there be some, even if I have to say I'm sorry because it came out wrong or whatever, than I would if we didn't have them or we were ignoring it and like it wasn't happening. Because that to me just seems like we're disenfranchised from the gospel. Like, it's okay, well, we know what we're supposed to do, but that's a little uncomfortable. We're just going to sing another song and quote another verse, and we're all going to go home, and we're not going to be any more the wiser or any the closer as to how we might be able to come together to solve, even just like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you can't solve this problem by yourself. Maybe we can't solve it as a church, but we surely can have better dialogue, more honest dialogue, and be more loving towards each other, which is you have to have that before we can love our community. So I just want to say
we have to be able to talk about where the Bible, the gospel, being a Christian intersects real life and the real things that are happening in our world. And that means we're going to talk about that.
That means messy town.
it's going to be messy. It doesn't mean that we're going to be able to always provide a nuanced, or I should say a non-biased, to me, sometimes when you talk about non-biased, that just means apathetic.
Yes.
And apathy is the opposite of love.
You and your wife agree on that. You know that?
It's amazing what after 27 years of being married.
We talked about I had a meeting with your wife this morning, and we talked about that very same thing. And I was like, oh, there you go. Look at Ken and Rochelle. Because what was it last time? We had you on the podcast remotely, and she was there with Puck, and I think we had some major disagreements. So here we are agreeing on the next time you're gone.
Believe it or not, Randy, Rochelle and I agree about more than we disagree with.
We'll take it.
Yep.
All right. So let's see. You've got to go in a little bit here, don't you, Ken? Because you're on a time schedule. I
do. I've got about 10 more minutes.
Well, Lucas, we're still down. Okay, so we will tell you what. If you had a question that didn't get answered this week, tune in next week, because hopefully they're on the server usually for I think a month or 60 days, something like that. So we can definitely have access. We just don't have it at the moment. So in the time that we have left, let's talk about this week. And you started off with a quote from preceptaustin.org about a definition of what phileo love is. And man, it just put it in a context that was super easy to understand. And then once you understand which I love their definition, it makes you want to be a part of it, because who wouldn't want this? The quote was, go ahead. Do you have it?
Oh, I do, but that's okay. You want to read it?
Yeah. It is the love that has tender affections for another, but it always expects a response. It is the friendship type of love. And in a marriage, eros love makes us lovers, and phileo love makes us dear friends. Ooh, see, I like that. In this kind of love, we share thoughts and feelings and attitudes and plans and dreams. That sounds a lot like whole life, Ken.
I hope so.
Amplify
That's what we
2036, anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a great explainer. And then you gave 4 different verses where this is used in the Bible. And I was like, oh man, we start off with adulterers.
Yeah.
And then if you love your father and mother more than me, we're talking about the kiss of Judas, the traitor, and beware the teachers of the religious law. And then I'm like, well, maybe I don't like this one so much. I kind of liked the first. I like the first definition a little bit better. But then you got down to John and 5:20 and John 16:27.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, for the Father loves the Son and shows him everything he is doing. In fact, the Father will show him how to do even greater works than healing this man. Then you will truly be astonished. And then the second, for the Father himself loves you dearly because you love me and believe that I came from God. And the same word used there, that how God loves his own Son, is the same word as how he loves us.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Whew, that was redemption after the other ones. I mean, the other ones had great points to them, and we won't go into each of them right at the moment, but do go back and check out. It is episode 300 in Speaking of Grace, which is kind of weird that we're already up to episode 300 there as well. But listen to Ken, the way they broke down these verses, because what you might think and then what you actually what some of these bring out in what God wants. Oh my goodness, this is, and it made a lot of things really clear for me about this. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Ken, was when it came to Judas, this is one that's, I don't know, how was it the people that, hated Jesus so much, they needed him dead. I mean, they were the victim of his public dress downs, making them look foolish in front of the people. Didn't they know who it was like what Jesus looked like, where they might find him? How was it that they needed Judas to kiss him? I never understood.
Great question. I think that in our modern world, we really take for granted how easy it is to identify people because we see pictures and we are in close proximity. And if somebody is even semi-famous, we see them a lot. But in Jesus' time, he didn't have news cameras following him around. And so it's quite possible that the people that were going to arrest Jesus had maybe only seen him once or twice in their lives. And so they didn't want to arrest the wrong person. And so it was important for them to have somebody who knew Jesus well identify him.
Yeah. Wow, I guess that makes sense. It just I thought about it, and I've thought about it before, but it just came to mind when you were going through that part, and I'm like, geez, Judas needed to kiss him, and I'm like, how did they?
Additionally, it was dark. It was nighttime. So there's a lot going on there.
That's true. That makes perfect sense. The other one that I thought, and Jay, if you're listening, this one made me think of you, and it made me think of times in my life. And I know, I think 2 weeks ago when Melanie shared, how she felt after their son was killed in an auto accident, and you said Revelation 3:19, I correct and discipline everyone I love, so be diligent and turn from your indifference. And man, this just made it seem like maybe we've talked a lot on the show over the years about, maybe the Job experience and what Jay's been experiencing, where you feel like you've done everything you can or everything that you know how to do, maybe things that you even felt God touching you to do, but with no seeming response to God. And then you said, basically, have you ever felt like God was, I don't remember the word you used.
Angry at you or getting even with you.
Yeah. And it made me feel like, man, I correct and discipline everyone I love. And as a dad and with a new dog rental in the house, Ken, that one really made me feel like, oh my goodness, this is, when you're feeling that, just that total wasteland, you're not hearing it. But then later on and it's happened to me, and I'm just, you feel afterwards, you realize what it was that you learned and how you grew spiritually. And then you think, man, would I want God to spare me from that? even though it really stunk during that. I don't. That's crazy. And wondering if that was just part of the. Is just part of those times when we don't feel God, man.
Yeah.
And I don't know that if that provides any comfort, but it did to me. It did to me.
Yeah, for sure.
And then how come I never knew we were so close to not having 17-year-old Ken?
Believe me, that was probably there's so many reasons why. I'm a Gen Xer. It's a miracle that I made it.
I've never heard that story before, so I was just like, and guys, if for no other reason, you got to watch the message, because 16-year-old Ken was looking good in Mexico.
Yeah, AI really makes you look a lot better, you know.
AI, that's funny. And then
so here's the true story. I think this is behind the scenes stuff.
For
Lucas
sure.
is amazing. So on this Mexico trip, I have no pictures of me because I'm taking all the pictures. So I'm behind the camera. So I sent Lucas a picture of of one of the pictures at the airport. And then I sent him a picture of me at that age, and he used the two, put them together, and boom.
Oh man, now we know how the pudding is made.
Yep. Little inside look.
That's awesome. And and those kinds of stories, I think those are also part of the dialogue where, it may not be exactly the same situation, I still feel like and I'm sure that's why you use the story. And I know we're running out of time here, but I'll share a real quick one that we had. We first moved to Florida. This was 2001, and we moved in August, and this would have been September. We were living in Longwood, and we had a car that needed servicing, and the place that was cheapest by like 50%, and it had to be a God thing, but it was all the way out in Claremont. And if you know where Claremont is from Longwood, that's a drive. Okay. And this was the 429 at that time was almost a barren wasteland. It was like looking at the streets of Detroit, right? There's nothing happening out there. And it ended at State Road 50. If you kept driving, you just drove off into sand. There was nothing there. There was no connector down to Disney. None of that was there. And this person stopped by like a guardian angel, and his name was Joe Heckford. And we had just picked up our car. I told them to go through everything. Yep, it's 100%. Water pump is fixed. Everything else is good. And the serpentine belt broke the minute we got back on, going back to Longwood from the dealership, which was in Claremont, so it was a ways away. And everybody was closed. And this man helped us lay underneath the car, getting eaten by mosquitoes in the pitch black for 2.5 hours to get the belt put back on that car. And we became friends. We hung out together. And it's just one of those times where someone who you didn't, and he was late for an appointment, a business appointment, and he stopped and helped us and ruined his entire evening and probably lost money in the process. So that was just someone that didn't need to and did. And man, how good that makes you feel, and what kind of friends you can make in the process. So Care Portal. Do you know anything about Care Portal, Ken?
A little bit. I've kind of introduced them. One of the let me say maybe a little bit more than a little bit. So some of our church members, Joe and Melinda Mitsource, introduced this to me. And it's kind of this neat program here in Orlando where social workers can use this to reach out to have needs met for people that they're working with. So maybe they need a crib for somebody who had a baby, or maybe they need some extra food for a family that's struggling to have food, or there's a variety of things. So what they do is they work with churches who screen people, have training for people in their church, and these people then are able to use this app or this website.
Wow.
Where they can see the needs that are available, and then they can match those needs if they so choose. And so it's a tremendous thing. I'm getting signed up. There's a training that you have to go through. Obviously, you want to be careful when you're matching people and all that sort of thing. You want to make sure everything is legit, and so they're going to do that. But if it's something you're interested in, just reach out to Anderling at wholelife.church, and she can definitely get you signed up to be a part of this. I mean, it's just a tremendous way of not expecting the government to do things, but as Christian believers make it possible for people to reach out and help.
Who knows? You may even have
Help a
something
neighbor.
that someone else needs without even,
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Exactly.
I will put the link to Andreline's email there in the show notes, as well as the link to the care portal if you just want to check it out. I need to do that as well because I was really interested and I didn't catch it all, but thank you for that. So just wrapping up, Eros is not the greatest of these. Was phileo? Or where does it rank? Nope, it's not the greatest of these.
Nope.
Shoot, we're still
This
waiting.
is going to be shocking to you, Randy, but it's going to be the last one.
Oh, what? Come on, Ken. You had.
I just did spoiler there. I apologize.
Okay, do we rank these in any certain order, or is it's the greatest of these and the rest are close?
I don't think I'll rank them, but what I'll say is that Eros is mentioned 0 times in the New Testament.
It's got to be last.
Phileo is mentioned over 25 different times. And Storge, which I'm going to be talking about this coming week, is mentioned kind of once, 2 or 3-ish, depending on the way you choose to go ahead and look at how words are smashed together and some other things. So,
Gotcha.
And then agape is used extensively. It's the one that is used over and over and over and over again in the Bible. And so we'll talk all about that and get into why that is and what's going on with that. But
so what's the word?
It'll be fun.
What's the word for this week?
Storge. 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 I think I spelled it right.
Storge?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's coming up this week then. And then, so it sounds like it might be Eros, Storge, Phileo, and then agape, if we're ranking them. Just fun.
I'll let everybody decide on their own what they want to do with that. What I would say is that in some ways I might suggest that what makes maybe the greatest of these is when we take them all and blend them together and where they all have their proper place to make this beautiful, complete picture of love.
Gotcha. All right, Ken, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we spent as much time as we did in the beginning. I felt like that was super helpful, and I hope that you guys found that rewarding as well. And so next week, Storge is up on that's the penultimate in the series, right?
Yep, you got it. You used my word, Randy.
Yeah, look at me stealing Ken's thunder while he's out. So, Ken, we'll let you get on to the rest of your day. Thank you for just taking the time, and thank you for your message, and then taking the time to really thoughtfully answer that question. I hope that at least put everything out.
I do need a piece of advice, though, Randy.
Oh, okay.
You willing to give me some advice? You and
what
Lucas.
You got? Okay.
Where do you want me to film 60-ish? Do you want me to do it at the Museum of the Bible? Do you need me to go to the Lincoln Monument in front of the White House? Do you want me to do it at my hotel on the DC Metro, somewhere in between Orlando and Washington, DC when I'm driving back? What do you want?
Lucas, this is you. What do you got?
The Lincoln Monument is my favorite in DC, so.
Okay.
I was afraid you were going to say that. You're not going to get that. I'm not near it, and I'm not going to walk 3 miles there. I shouldn't have even put it out there. Well, Lucas right now is being like, "Why would you even ask if you're not really going to give me a choice?"
Exactly.
Who knows? Now that you actually say it, though, I will see what I can do for you because Lucas, you matter to me.
Amen to that.
Lucas is my favorite immigrant. I work with him every day. He's my favorite.
All right.
All right.
You guys have a good one.
All right, Ken. Thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and have a great week. Thanks for listening to This Is Whole Life. If today's conversation resonated with you, we invite you to subscribe, share, and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. To join the conversation, send a text or voicemail to 407-965-1607 or email podcast@wholelife.church. To learn more about Whole Life Church, worship with us online or in person, visit our website, wholelife.church. Until next time, this is Whole Life.